Okay, gang, checking your references. Relative motion and 2D kinematics. Let's see what we got here. How would Homer know that he's hurtling through interstellar space if his speed is constant? Oh! Without a window, he wouldn't. All the frames of reference apply within his frame of reference. So inside the spaceship, Homer thinks, I'm just sitting on the planet Earth. It's because all motion is really relative. Meaning the only way to define motion is by changing position. So it's changing position relative to what? So you have to have some frame of reference, either a sideline on a football field or a edge of a river or something. So, do you feel like you're motionless right now? Reality is you're not. You're on a planet that's spinning and revolving all the time. Just remember that you're sitting on a planet that's revolving and evolving at 900 miles an hour. That's from Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. You're not. You're spinning around, but you don't feel it because everything around you is moving relative to you, so you don't feel that motion. You feel like you're sitting still. But if you were outside of the planet, if you were somehow in the space and you could see the planet moving, you'd be flying around through space, around the sun, hurtling around the sun at 6,600 miles per hour. And I don't even want to tell you what we're moving at around galactic central point. There's more motion out there. So let's try an example problem now of relative motion. A train is moving east at 25 meters per second. A man on the train gets up and walks towards the front of the train at 2 meters per second. How fast is he going? Well, it depends on where we're measuring his frame of reference. Okay? So, it's plus 2 relative to a fixed point on the train. So if you're standing on the train with him, he'd be moving forward at 2 meters per second. However, if you were standing on the side and watching him move as the train went by, he'd be moving forward at 27 meters per second relative to a fixed point on the Earth. That's relative motion. We add the two vectors. How about this problem? Well, we got a passenger on a 747 that's moving east at 230 meters per second, walking towards the lavatory at the rear of the plane at 1.5 meters per second. How fast is this passenger moving? Again, relative to the plane, someone standing on the plane measuring his velocity would say, well, he's moving backwards at negative 1.5 meters per second relative to a fixed point inside the plane. If we were somehow able to be in a fixed point in the clouds and watch this plane go by, we would say he's moving at positive 228.5 meters per second relative to that fixed point on Earth or in the sky. Okay, what happens to the plane's forward speed when the wind changes? So now let's look at an example where we now have to deal with the wind, and this also works for boats and streams, etc., etc. If no wind, the plane moves with the velocity that comes from the engine, that forward thrust. Now, if the wind is in the same direction as the plane, it adds to the overall velocity. That's why sometimes the pilot will say as you get on the plane, well, we're going to make it there earlier because we got a tailwind. Now, if the wind is at an angle, it's going to be some combination, pushing it, let's say, in this particular direction to the south. Now, if you have a crosswind, you now have to have the combination of those two vectors. The wind is now not having any effect on the forward motion, but pushes the plane south. Now, as we're moving into a headwind, as we call it, well, that particular plane is going to be slowed because the plane is being pushed somewhat to the south, and it's a forward wind. And this is the worst case scenario. When you're flying into a headwind, it slows the plane down, causes no drift to either the north or the south. When you're flying into a headwind, that's the slowest you move. Anyway, the critical variable in multi-dimensional problems is always time. We separate each dimension, we teach each dimension separated, and time is the only variable that's a crossover variable, meaning it works in both the x and the y dimension. So here's a swimmer trying to swim across a river. 200-meter wide river, swimmer's moving at 0.5 meters per second across the 200 meters. How long will it take the swimmer to get across? Well, we know v equals d over t. It's going to take him 400 seconds. Now, assuming that the swimmer moves across the river, a constant pushes him downstream to 0.1 meters per second, he arrives. What's different? He moves at a point downstream.